these games were only 3 quarters long, the Pacers might very well be on their way to the NBA Finals. They had a 90% chance to win Game 1, Game 3, and Game 4. Last night it was 90.6% with 8:42 remaining in Game 4. So, UD, we turn to you first on this. When you see a team, I mean, how did they give this series away? Let us count the ways. From the ridiculously egregious finish of Game 1 to letting the big lead slip away in Game 3 and then the mistakes last night.
I mean, I know you like to play the game of basketball fast. This is when you're at your best version, when you're rebounding, you're getting the ball up, you're getting it out, you're spraying, you're moving the defense. But there's some point in the game where you got to slow it down. The last 2 minutes has been very, very critical for the Indiana Pacers. If they can control the last 2 minutes of the game, these are games they could possibly win. And this series could have been 2-2 or possibly even 3-1. You have to slow down. You have to attack the matchups you want. You have to get the shots you want. They just didn't do that. They didn't know when it was time to slow down and take their foot off the pedal. It was all gas, no brakes for 48 minutes.
Windy.
Well, Greeny, first off, it's a rough morning here in Dallas. We had 77-mile-an-hour winds, but the game was played inside, so we'll be fine for tonight, I assume. To me, you're talking about the fourth quarter. How about just if this was a 45-minute game? Forget about just the fourth quarter. The first 45 minutes of these 4 games, the Pacers won those 45 minutes. The last 3 minutes, and that was the sort of the tail here, was the Celtics in clutch play. And it's difficult to determine where you place the credit or blame. Was it the Pacers who just couldn't get anything done down the stretch of these games, whether it was errors of their own making, coaching mistakes that Rick Carlisle admitted to, or was it just brilliant clutch play? Because if you watch the way the Celtics handled their business at the end of these games, it was extremely impressive. In last night's game, Tatum made a play. Brown made some plays. Derek White makes the game winner. Once again, Drew Holiday gets the ball at the end of the game when it matters. You got to give the Celtics credit somewhere in there.
No question about it. No one is trying to take anything away from Boston. They just completed one of the most dominant runs to an NBA Finals that we have ever seen, and we will have 9 days to talk about them. But this morning, it does feel like the conversation begins with a young Indiana team that,
Brittany, you're not going to like me right now.
Go. What are you going to say?
Just because this conversation can go 2 ways. Indiana gave the series away or Boston took the series?
Which do you think it was?
It's Boston took the series because, frankly, look, I know we can dwindle down plays on Indy and we can break down the series last night, but I'm going to give credit to the team that has only lost 2 games in the playoffs, right? I'm going to give credit to the team that actually has the poise and experience just to loom, to be there when it matters the most, to make clutch plays down the stretch to win these games. Like, I think we continuously look over Boston. I know the pressure is there, but damn, Boston's taking care of business now. Now, I know Jimmy Butler's been out. You can say Tyrese Halliburton's been out. All these players have been out. But they've been doing what they're supposed to do, right? Like, you talk about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum took over the game, whether that's in overtime, Derek White making clutch plays, Jaylen Brown making the clutch 3. So I hear all this stuff around the Pacers, but it does feel like we're going to come out of this whole thing talking about how Boston's been giving it. It's the Boston Invitational, but yet they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Right. No one's taking that away from them.
I know, but it feels like the conversation is framed differently.
Well, because Indiana gift-wrapped 3 of the 4 games in the series, Alex.
Wait.
Or did Boston take it?
Hold on a second. Jay,
Jay,
I'm old enough to remember when you did a whole telestrator on the end of Game 1.
I agree.
Where you were calling out all the things that the Pacers did wrong. Now all of a sudden it's all the things that the Celtics did right.
Okay, can I combat that?
You're not wrong.
Can I combat that for a second?
You certainly can.
When you're a high-volume possession team, you're not used to slowing things down, UD. When you're used to having an incredible amount of possessions, you can play fast. Also, when the game gets slow and you got to execute, that's not who Indiana has been the whole year.
That's why they're 2-5 in clutch in the playoffs. That's why.
I will say this. When the game got tough, you saw one team speed up and you saw another team slow down.
Yep.
You saw another team take a breath. You saw another team attack Obi Toppin every time and get the shot that they want. I will say that, and I will give Boston credit for that. They did stick around for Game 1. That's all they had to do. That's all they had to do for Game 1. Just be on the court. So the other couple games, I will give them credit for being in the right place at the right time. But there's a saying. When people show you it, I'll believe them. You're sitting in that locker room in your Boston, you're saying just play 48 minutes.
Yes.
Just stick it out. We'll be where we need to be at the end.
And J.J. Redick said something at the end of the game, and I love that he said it because I was thinking the same thing. During the regular season, one of the knocks we had on Boston was they weren't really good at closing games, that they messed around a lot of times. They fumbled some wins away during the regular season. They aren't doing that in the postseason. They certainly are getting the job done late in games in the postseason, certainly did it against a team like Indiana. And to go with what you were saying, the one thing we should point out is Joe Mazzulla, somebody who has been maligned a lot over the last year when he took over as coach last second and had to adjust, go from an assistant coach to a head coach. I thought he handled the end of this game perfectly. The way he handled Tatum's minutes with the 5 fouls,
Timeout. Yes,
taking him, knowing we're going to get a defense, so let me get him out. Then we're going to call a timeout. I'm going to get him even more rest. Tatum comes in and he played fantastic to finish that game. All those little things that he did also to manage that win and to make sure they got the sweep, instead of giving away a game like they had done in the first 2 rounds, was terrific.
Now, all that being said, Indiana tricked out the series.
Yeah, but that's
I
the
knew that
point.
was coming.
Can we call Cap again?
Yeah, that's Cap.
That was Cap. The most interesting number we had on our screen a second ago, in the final 3 minutes of the game last night, with their season on the line, Indiana scored 0 points. I mean, literally 0. And I tell you what, Rick Carlisle is an excellent coach.
Yes.
He's going to go to the Hall of Fame as a coach. I'm not sure. He had a terrible series.
He never used to coach like this, though. He was always
terrible
defense
series.
foundation, right? You think? Like, he was always a defense foundation.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
he got us. He got us. He got us in the finals. Literally threw out an old school zone, and we could not figure it out. I mean, we blazed our way to the finals, and in the finals, Rick ran circles around us.
He was the coach of the Mavericks. You're talking about in 11 when he beat you guys your first year together in Miami. But in game 1 of this series, he did not call a timeout when he absolutely needed to. In game 3 of this series, at the very end, he did not call a timeout. Well, he can see his young team racing up the court looking discombobulated. That's my point. They're young. They play fast. They don't. It's not in their nature to slow it down. You know who can slow it down? The coach can slow it down. Right. He can call a timeout. He can say, everybody, let's take a breath.
And
we're going to run a
play. Not a 4 wide out, everybody run down the floor call like that in game 3. That was unbelievable.
Bottom line is Indiana need a couple more mango seasons. Pacers need a couple more mango seasons.
Yeah.
They just need a couple more mango seasons. They'll be all right, but they just weren't ready. They weren't ready for the moment. They got here. They probably didn't even expect to be there. And they got there, and they just need a couple more mango seasons.
Jay will show us one of the big plays last night and where it went sideways.
Yeah, this is the play where Derek White makes a 3, and it's in the game defensively. Sometimes for Indiana, you wonder what they're doing. Watch Drew Holiday give the ball up. He gives the ball up. As he gives the ball up, now look right away, right? They know what they're in. Here comes the screen. You're going to see the screen down here. He's pointing towards Miles Turner and Al Horford. You're going to have a pin-down screen. As this pin-down screen comes, right, and you're seeing the time on the clock, 16 seconds left on the shot clock. They're in a space out, 5-out scenario. That's always is how Boston plays. Moment of truth. Here comes the screen. Boom. All right. Screen is coming down right here. AD. What do you think you do there? Do you stay or do you switch?
I stay.
All right, you stay.
I think you stay on that one.
All right, so we like to stay. But if you switch, now what you're going to have is you're going to have Pascal Siakam guarding the likes of Al Horford and then Miles Turner guarding the likes of Drew Holiday. Okay. Watch how they recognize it. Switch. Boom, which is going to switch. And watch Al Horford. Al Horford says, no, you go set the screen.
Yes.
Drew recognizes that. He comes out and sets the screen. And this is where you get down to the nitty-gritty of it. Comes off the ball here. Look, momentum takes him all this way. Boom, boom. That way, he's going to get into this gap here. As he gets into this gap, why is T.J. McConnell sitting in the middle of the paint?
I understand he's the low man, so he wants to take he's taking his 2.9 right here. I understand he's the low man. But as that drive starts to happen, you got to start fanning out. He put Naismith in a tough spot right here.
So as we get, Boston loves to play 5 out. I'd much rather take Jaylen Brown with a tough 2 against Miles Turner, considering the game is tied with 47.8 seconds left, than actually have everybody help in from the weak side. You know Boston wants to kick it out for 3s.
You have to fan out to get to your guys. Right now, as I see him, he's got his hand on the ball. He's guarding him. I'm starting to fan out if I'm T.J. McConnell. And if I'm Naismith, I stay here a second longer, but I'm starting to fan out as well because you know they want to spray for 3. Like you said, make them take a tough 2.
And by the way, look how they're looking at the ball. Like he doesn't even see his man in here in the corner. He's focused on the ball, right? Not ball you man, boom, gets into the gap, 3-point shot.
I mean, everybody was open. Yeah, everybody was open.
I mean, if you want to go back,
if you can rewind it, everybody was open. Look at Drew.
Yeah.
Look at Tatum. Like, take your pick.
Like, what do you want, Green?
That's a good point. Literally everybody.
What do you want here? Do you want here? Do you want Jason Tatum for a 3? Do you want Derek White for a 3? I mean, you got both options there. He hits Derek White, knocks down the 3.
And to the point that we made before about the Celtics doing the right thing, he goes to the easiest shot in the single best shot in basketball today, aside from a dunk, is a corner 3. And that is twice in this series, in the biggest moments of the series, meaning the very end of game 1 and that dagger shot last night, the Celtics get a very good look at a corner 3, the last thing in the world you give up if you're Indiana.
I mean, that's the shot I started shooting when I started moving 3s. When they took away the mid-range, the first shot they told me to go was to the corner 3. Of course, it's the easiest shot, and that's the shortest 3 as well.
Agree. And Greeny, I will say that sometimes, like, I know that defensive game plans can be to switch everything. There's a tendency, though, UD, when you switch, you become a little bit lazy, right?
Right, switching
There's certain
defenses are
matchups
lazy.
sometimes, like,
Yes,
if UD's,
yes.
all right, so stay. All right, it starts with communication. That's why we always talk about defensively, Indiana really not knowing how to execute down the stretch.
So look, we've been sort of in breaks here debating amongst ourselves how much of this, we don't want to take anything away from what the Celtics have done. They've done what they needed to do. The fact that this has been the Boston Invitational all along, the fact that the injuries helped roll out a red carpet for them, that's not their fault. They've done everything they're supposed to do. Sometimes both things can be true at the same time. The Pacers can have handled the biggest moments of this series very badly, and the Celtics can have handled them well.
I just think experience reared its ugly head with this young Indiana Pacer team that plays at a very fast pace, especially without having Tyrese Halliburton on the floor. But I can make this case, even with the way Halliburton plays, because he's so erratic sometimes, he's a great passer, but when it comes down to making executed plays down the stretch, that hasn't been Indiana's strength all season long.
All right, so that's where that leaves them. The Pacers have the summer now to regroup. The Celtics go on to the NBA Finals after what has been a dominant run through the Eastern Conference playoffs.